it gives me the great pleasure to get to introduce our incoming president, Dr. Marina Kurian. Dr. Marina Kurian will be our 37th president of the ASMBS. Dr. Kurian was born in Bonn, West Germany. She completed a 6-year combined undergraduate and medical school program with a BS in biology and modern language from Union College in New York. In 1990, she completed her MD degree at Albany Medical College and continued there for her surgical residency, where she served as chief resident. She also completed a surgical critical care fellowship at Children's Hospital of Michigan, Wayne State University in Michigan, and then her fellowship in laparoscopic surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. She has spent the past 20 years in practice in New York. She's had a variety of practice opportunities. She has experienced several different practice environments and has gone between employed practice to academic practice to private practice. She is currently in private practice with New York Minimally Invasive Surgery, operating at Lenox Hill Hospital and NYU Langone, where she teaches residents. She offers all bariatric procedures, including revisions, in her practice. She has distinguished herself through service on multiple ASMBS committees and task forces, including in private practice, communications, and insurance committee, among many others. She has also served as the president of the ASMBS Foundation, which is now the Trio Foundation, and she has been on the executive council of ASMBS since 2017. So it has been my pleasure working with Marina these past several years and getting to know her better. It is my pleasure to pass the gavel to the next leg of this fantastic relay. I am so excited to support her in her coming year as the 37th president of ASMBS. I know she will do a great job.
All right, thank you guys so much. You know, I'm following the footsteps of some really great leaders of this society, and I want you to know that we all truly believe the president and all the executive council are really here to represent all of you. We do have several initiatives for the next year, and it critically requires state chapter involvement, and I'm hoping that each one of you will participate in those endeavors. Teresa will discuss some of these in her presidential address, and I look forward to hearing from her on that, as I'm sure all of you do as well. Now, I know everyone gets a lot of emails, but I want you to look for the top 5 on the 5th, because in there you will be getting all of the updates on what we're doing as a society for all of our members. And I truly want to hear from all of you, so you can reach out to me via email. I was originally going to give you Teresa's email because I thought it would be funny. She would have been a little mad, I think. But anyway, thank you all again for this honor to serve you.
All right. So next, I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Shanal Katari, who is our immediate past president, to give us a few words about me.
All right, good morning. Yes, my name is Shanal Katari. I am the immediate past president of ASMBS. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our current president, Dr. Teresa LaMasters. Dr. LaMasters grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota. This was her with her late father, Marvin, and mother, Verla, and her brothers, Keith and Kevin. In high school, she played trumpet. Interestingly, I did not know we shared this in common. Now, I can't tell from this photo if the person behind her is a color guard or if they're just begging her to stop playing. She remained an athlete through her younger years, playing not only softball, but was active in gymnastics as well. She went to college at South Dakota State University, where she met her husband Eric in 1994, and continued her athletics on the track team. Now, from the angle of this picture, I'm not sure if she ultimately cleared that hurdle. But I can tell you she has overcome several hurdles during her presidency at ASMBS. Like this past Friday, when she accidentally set off the fire alarm at the airport before boarding her delayed flight to Vegas. She ultimately matriculated from the University of South Dakota School of Medicine and went on to do her residency at the University of Kansas School of Medicine in Wichita. After residency, she went on to do her fellowship at Stanford, and she's been in practice in Des Moines, Iowa for several years now. Her first year in practice, I was invited to give grand rounds at her institution. The entire hospital was abuzz, telling me how excited they were to have her and the great things she was accomplishing in such a short time for the great state of Iowa. I was really looking forward to meeting this young superstar, but she didn't come to my lecture. So we met later here at ASMBS. Now, Teresa and her husband, Eric, they have two sons, John and Peter. Both boys inherited their mother's athletic abilities. John, their oldest son, is an avid swimmer. Now, this picture is with their youngest, Peter. In the bottom left corner, that was taken after a 24-mile bike ride. Now, you can still see her smiling. I have no idea why she biked 24 miles. I assume their car broke down. It has been great to see their sons' respective accomplishments from Dr. LaMasters' posts on social media as well. Now, I must add, as a father of two daughters, I am rarely impressed with boys, but I can tell you that I was extremely impressed the first time I met both of them. I previously mentioned Teresa's smile, and this is the one thematic element I would like for you to notice throughout these photos. Teresa always has a smile on her face, regardless of the circumstances. Now look at this photo. I don't know what question posed such reactions. But Jaime looks post-call. Sammer has a look of consternation. Marina's trying to force a smile, knowing she's going to be the future president. Eric is unconscious. And Karen is just worried about Eric. But look at Dr. LaMasters, continuing to smile, being a great ambassador of AMBS with our friends to the north. And I would like to take this time to share some little-known facts about Dr. LaMasters. As I reflected on the impact that our current 36th president, Dr. LaMasters, as well as Dr. Ed Mason, our first president, both from Iowa, have had on our society, it made me focus on contributions to the literature just from researchers from Iowa. So in the spirit of full disclosure, after living in Wisconsin for 24 years, we were the butt of a lot of jokes. And the only people left to make fun of live in Iowa. I found this landmark study on the survival of white-tailed deer fawn in central Iowa. While I find it odd that the senior author of what's going on with the white-tailed deer fawns in central Iowa is from Indiana, without reading the article, I can tell you what happened to the white-tailed deer in central Iowa. Now, even at the ASMBS meeting last year, she kept up her skills while shooting cute and cuddly creatures in a virtual environment. Although she credits her husband Eric for her love of wine. I think perhaps it was this landmark paper published in Iowa Drinking Water that caused them to really become lovers of wine. Or at least Eric. Now, Teresa does appreciate wine and has become a true enophile. Now, this is their wine vineyard in Napa Valley. Many people don't know that Teresa is the owner of Opus One Vineyard. And here she is selecting only the choicest of reserve wines from her private collection that she graciously shared with us at her presidential reception. When traveling to these meetings, most of us travel light with a rollerboard. But Dr. LaMasters can't because she can't bring liquids over 4 ounces onto a plane. She literally travels with a wine suitcase. This is an example of a wine suitcase, and this is Teresa's. Now, I'm not one to judge what others do with their disposable income, but every time I've talked with Teresa about how much she really does invest in wine, she always prefaces by saying, "Katari, you have a boat, I have wine, which is fine, but after a day on my boat, I wake up the next day and I still own a boat. After a great night with her wine, she wakes the next day and has to buy more wine. But on a serious note, I would like to take a few moments to recognize Dr. LaMasters' contributions. During ASMBS, she has distinguished herself through numerous committees, as listed here. She's been a strong supporter of the community and independent practice surgeons. As a result, in 2013, she made a significant contribution to our society, pioneering the 2013 ASMBS Annual Compensation Survey. And she has repeated this a decade later. She was the Iowa State Chapter President. She went on to become a superstar over the Midwest region and has helped forge the MBSA QIP standards for accreditation. The world record holder Usain Bolt famously stated, "Dreams are free, goals have cost." While you can daydream for free, goals don't come without a price. Time, effort, sacrifice, sweat. How will you pay for your goals? We are familiar with his signature lightning bolt pose. Here we have our own Teresa Bolt LaMasters, our leader who has also had many goals, none of which came without a price. Time, effort, sacrifice, and sweat. I have told many that the presidency is an empty nester position due to its significant time commitments. I truly admire how she managed this, as well as being a busy clinical surgeon, mother, and wife simultaneously. Not only does she balance all of those roles effortlessly, she has represented us locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally to help our cause and our patients in a purpose-driven manner. Some of us were alive in 1976 and remember when Nadia scored the perfect 10 in gymnastics. In 2023, Dr. LaMasters scored a perfect 10 as president of ASMBS. As you can see her here, balancing with grace and poise, the same way she has carried herself through her presidency. Teresa, congratulations on completing a very successful term. You have fought the good fight, you have finished the race, and you have kept the ASMBS faith. Well done, good and faithful servant of the ASMBS. Now it's my honor to introduce to you my friend and our 36th president of the ASMBS, Dr. Teresa LaMasters.
Wow, I tell you what, that is a tough act to follow. Let's see if I can get my slides. We're going the wrong way. There we go. All right. Well, I want to first start by thanking Dr. Katari for that very kind introduction. I knew it would be funny. I knew it would be a tearjerker, because he is a natural-born storyteller. So I thought about how to tell my story today, because I'm not a natural-born storyteller. I don't have great music. I don't have any funny videos. And spoiler alert, I don't have a balloon drop. So the thing I do have is my story. And that story is of how the word yes has been transformative in my life. These are my disclosures today, and they should not impact my talk. But my other disclosure is that I do not have the time to thank everyone in this room today and in my address who deserves my gratitude. There are so many people who have given to me and supported me on this journey. So please understand that each of you are very special and important to me, and I did not intentionally exclude any of you from my public gratitude, but my talk was just too long. So I considered doing an hour-long talk on just fun pictures, but then I decided against it. I am humbled and honored to have served as the ASMBS president for the past year. It truly has been the honor of my life. Serving in this role is very humbling because of all the great people who are sitting down here who have come before me, and the fantastic people over here that I work with every day. It's easy to focus on the many things I don't have as a president, because I come from a little bit different background than many of the past presidents. But today, I want to talk about some of the things I do have and a little bit about who I am. I am a community practice bariatric surgeon in Des Moines, Iowa. My practice is 95% bariatric surgery, and I have a fantastic team to help me there. Many of them are in the room. I just can't see them right at this moment, but they're here. So this is the question that people ask me the most. So how did you get here? Well, I have very humble beginnings. As Shawna said, I grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota. I often tell people I'm a nobody from nowhere. Yes, that is where Mount Rushmore is. But I grew up in a small home on the rougher side of town, and I never planned to be president of anything. But there's nothing wrong with trying it on for size. To tell my story, I need to start with my parents. I am the middle child of Marvin and Verla Crago, and I have 2 brothers. I was born into a working class family. My father was a mechanic and a small business owner, and my mother was a nurse. Looking back, I learned many of the principles of being a doctor from them. Being a small business owner and a deacon at the church, my father worked very hard. An 18-hour workday was not unusual for him. It was also very common for him to get a call from someone in trouble who needed help at any hour of the day or night. I remember many family dinners he left, even on holidays, to go help someone in need. He also taught me to treat all people with dignity and respect, and that it was a privilege to serve. My mother was an ICU nurse for 20 years, and then worked on the floor for a total of 45 years. I watched her have ownership of patients. You know, back in that day, that's what smart women did. They were ICU nurses. And she would come home and be thinking about patients, and then call into the nurse on the shift to discuss the patient, just to make sure nothing was missed. So, what happens when you put together a nurse and a mechanic? Pretty easy, huh? You get a surgeon. But I had an uphill climb to get here. My parents were very busy, so I was left to find my own path from a very early age. And that's what I did. Many people inspired and helped me along the way. And help sometimes comes from where you don't expect it. I felt like my world really started to take off at age 9. That was the year everything changed. My 4th grade teacher, Miss Orline, told me after the first quarter, "Wow, you almost got all A's. Wow, I think you can get it next quarter." I didn't even have any idea that that was something to aspire to achieve. I had one of my first opportunities to say yes, and I did. And I got straight A's from that day forward. So I continued to look for more opportunities. That year, my younger brother was born, and I had the responsibility for babysitting. I was in public school, and the opportunity to play a string instrument came up, so I started playing the violin. It's also when I started Little League softball and gymnastics. I found it actually very challenging to start playing these sports at age 9 when all of my teammates had been playing since they were 4 years old. I was clearly outmatched in skill and equipment. I was faced with the question, would I just say it's too late for me and I was already too far behind? Or would I dig in and learn these new skills? This was one of my first really big opportunities to say, yes, I will do it. The next year was the opportunity to start band. When I talked to my parents, they said, there is no money to rent another instrument. But if you really want to play another instrument, I could play the old cornet that my mom had in high school that was stored at the very bottom of her closet and no one had seen in many years. She'd gotten it used 20 years earlier. But I saw another opportunity, however imperfect, and I said yes. And this would lead to a music scholarship in college. So during these years, I would continue to seek out every opportunity possible. It was not all rainbows and unicorns. For most of these opportunities, I would find I was starting way behind my peers. My family had no money, and my parents could not give me support. I was on the island of misfit toys. I was starting years later with no skills, no resources, and little support. I was faced with a choice to give in to the insurmountable challenges or to continue to struggle to get better. I learned that even given the smallest opportunity, with a little time and a lot of work, I could learn to master many things. I learned to say yes. So on my path to become a doctor, I had additional challenges. When I was in college, I met with the pre-med advisor. I told him I just wasn't sure how I stacked up compared to others planning to go to medical school. I really had no one to help me prepare. His answer to me was, well, I think you're smart enough, but I don't know if you have enough confidence to go to medical school. Wow. Again, I said yes. During my surgery rotation in medical school, 5 women were standing at the scrub sink during our rotation, and the surgeon attending walked up and proceeded to tell us that women do not make good surgeons. They just don't have the right personality for it. At that moment, we all looked at each other and we all said yes. All 5 of those women are surgeons today. So I'll tell you that none of us gets here alone. I have had many people to thank on this journey, and I appreciate every hand who has helped me along this path. I want to take the time to thank some of those people who helped me get here. I want to thank Drs. Jonathan Dort and Nicole Fearing, who are my dear friends. Dr. Fearing was my chief resident, and Dr. Dort was my attending. They helped me develop my skills as a surgeon and introduced me to minimally invasive surgery and bariatric surgery. Dr. Dort also introduced me to attending national meetings. The first step. Would I take the next step? Yes, I said yes. I want to thank my mentors from fellowship, Drs. John Morton, Miriam Curette, and Sherry Wren. I had an excellent, very broad experience in my fellowship. This is where I learned what it meant to be a true bariatric specialist. When recruiting me to Stanford, Dr. Morton had a great line for me. He said, "You know what, Teresa? Someday you will be famous, and I want you to have been at Stanford." Now, I don't believe for 1 second that he actually believed that. But it was okay, because I believed it. And I said, yes. So many people helped me along this journey. And I need to thank Dr. Jim Lau, who was my co-fellow at Stanford. He was a little bit older than me. He had already been out in practice, actually, as a trauma surgeon before coming back to do a fellowship. He was truly kind to me and was willing to mentor me and help me find my way. I also want to thank Dr. Dan Wool, who was the fellow after me and was also a great friend and supporter, and we are still close friends to this day. So my next step was to move from California to Iowa. I thought, this is going to be great. This is the birthplace of bariatric surgery. The first ASMBS president, Dr. Ed Mason, is from Iowa. But when I landed, I found myself in hostile territory. The community had had some bad experiences with bariatric surgery, and specifically with gastric bypasses, and were very, very against gastric bypass and bariatric surgery. It was going to be a lot of work to rebuild the confidence of the community. So I had a decision to make. Was I going to bail out and go somewhere easier? Or would I be willing to stay and put in the work to transform the community? I said, yes, I will do the hard work. Over the next several years, I worked to rebuild the reputation of bariatric surgery in Des Moines, Iowa, and built a thriving practice. So you can imagine that the work to rebuild a bariatric surgery practice was not easy, and I realized I needed some help. Thankfully, some of my earliest members were willing to be my partners from across the country. I want to thank Drs. Keith Boone and Dr. Muhammad Ali, who let me continue to participate in our monthly Fellows Conference, and we were able to discuss lots of difficult cases. They are still my dear friends. They're both here today. And I also met my first friend from ASMBS, Dr. Jamie Loggins. He finished his fellowship the year before me in California and was part of the same Fellows Conference, even though he was already out in practice. He showed me how I could do this. I also now had someone I could eat lunch with at the meetings. He became a great friend and a peer mentor, and we were able to help each other during those difficult early years of practice. So now that I was attending ASMBS regularly, it was time to get to work. I had been working to save Medicaid coverage of bariatric surgery in Iowa. And I found out that there are a lot of other people who do this work in ASMBS and were great resources. Dr. Morton volunteered me, you should join Access to Care. So I will tell you that this type of work was not where I felt like I had any skill. It was very uncomfortable for me, and it was really a stretch. But again, the question was, would I say yes? This was very important work, even if I felt uncomfortable. So yes, I said yes. So the first people to engage me in the work of the ASMBS were John Morton and Wayne English in Access to Care. Many of the people in these photos were my earliest mentors in the society, and I'm very grateful for their guidance. So my next big opportunity came from this great mentor. I approached Dr. Blackstone when she was president, right at the side of the stage, with what I thought was a very important idea. The ASMBS needed to provide support for surgeons in compensation negotiations because it was an uneven playing field in employed practice models. She said, you know what, that is a great idea. You go do it, and I'll support you. So I said yes, and conducted the first compensation and practice survey for ASMBS. Now I had help with that, but it definitely was my first big project. This was also my first introduction to the Executive Council and the governance structure of ASMBS. So what happens next? Another mentor from home, Dr. Rick Sidwell, who's the residency program director, told me, the reward for good work is more work. So would I say yes? And again, I said yes. I continued to hone my skills on multiple local committees at the hospital and state level. I then continued to find many opportunities to serve at ASMBS, from state chapters to Access to Care to a lot of work in the MBSA QIP accreditation program. I was willing to volunteer and not wait for somebody to decide I was worthy to be asked. I would not have been able to pursue these opportunities without the support of my family. So I would like to thank my parents who could not be here today. My mother, Verla, is in frail health now, but she is cheering for me from home. My father, Marvin Crago, would have been very proud of this moment. He passed away at age 56 with severe diabetes, obesity, and cancer. He was my first introduction to understand that the disease of obesity takes a life much too soon. So I'd like to thank my other parents as well, who welcomed me into the family with open arms. My in-laws, Rick and Cindy LaMasters, are here to help celebrate today. And I want to thank Rick and Cindy because they've been there to support me and my husband every step of the way. They've been through every test I've taken, all the way from medical school, residency, fellowship. They've been every step of the way, and every major transition in my adult life, along with my husband. So of course, I want to thank my wonderful husband, Eric, who has been by my side, willing to walk this journey with me for the past nearly 27 years. There are not many people who could or would be willing to do this kind of a journey. So you could not have known what challenges and adventures were ahead. We were so young. I cannot thank you enough for the sacrifice you have made and the support you have given me and our family. I would not be here without you. A few people in this room up here know that the job of ASMBS president requires a lot of time and sacrifice. But the true unsung hero is the spouse and family of the president. I want to tell you that I thank you is not enough for the gratitude I feel for you and for helping me reach my dreams. So thank you for saying yes to me. I also want to thank my boys, John and Peter, who are here with me today. Thank you for giving me the grace and forgiveness for the many activities and events I had to miss due to my duties as a surgeon and in National Society leadership. I am so proud of you both. I want to take just a minute to show the world how proud I am, with the risk of a little embarrassment. So my son John will be a senior in high school this year. He is a scholar and an athlete and has a deep love of the outdoors. He loves to grow anything and everything. My son Peter is going to be a sophomore this year. He is a fantastic cook, athlete, jazz musician, and painter. He is also a fantastic scholar. I could not be more proud of the amazing people both of you are. You are truly the accomplishment I am the most proud of. I also want to thank my team from home. Dr. Cahalan, my partner, and my APPs, Reagan, Katie, Jody, Alyssa, and Danielle, and my nurse coordinator, Krissa, with special thanks to my previous coordinator, Susie Locke, who had been walking with me on this journey for over 15 years. These are the people who make sure things run smoothly when I'm away, and they give me great support and encouragement. I am so thankful to have a great team. I also want to thank my other great team, the current ECEC, Drs. Kirian, Rogers, and Dr. Katari. You have provided excellent advice and support for me this year. I will miss your great stories every Wednesday, Dr. Katari, and will now only get to hear them once a month at the EC meetings. So thank you all so much for being such a great leadership team. I also want to welcome the newly elected incoming Secretary Treasurer, Dr. Richard Peterson. Rich is my dear friend. He has a wealth of experience, and I am so happy to have him join us on the ECEC. I also want to thank the entire Executive Council for your tireless work and sound judgment. Many people think that by the time you make it to the Executive Council, you're done doing all the work. That is not the case. That's when a whole nother level of work can start. You are thoughtful and careful stewards of the society. It has been my pleasure to work with you all, and I'm looking forward to another great year. I also want to welcome the newly elected Executive Council members, Drs. Monique Hassan, Colleen Kennedy, and Rana Poulat. I'm excited to have you add your background, expertise, and perspective to the Executive Council Board. I also want to thank Nate Son for his outstanding work serving as the Integrated Health President, and he served for the past 2 years. I've enjoyed getting to know Nate over the past 10 years, both as a leader and as a friend. We came up together in the society. Nate worked with me on that first compensation survey, and we partnered together to do the integrated health and surgeons together. So he has been a dedicated servant leader, and he is always ready to do the work. So thank you so much for your service. I also want to thank Christy Kaufman for being willing to serve as the interim executive director for the past 2 years. You have done a great job with the difficult job of getting all of us to do what we're supposed to be doing and to get us all working in the same direction. So thank you so much for saying yes to us. I also want to thank all our ASMBS staff colleagues who help execute our mission every day. I've worked very closely with many of you over the years, and I thank you for your passion and your support. I also want to thank Dr. Ann Rogers, the chair of the program committee, along with the co-chairs, Dr. Rachel Moore and Dr. Rana Poulat, for putting together a fantastic meeting. I have heard glowing comments every single day from the attendees, and I appreciate your hard work. I'd also like to thank my ASMBS family. So these two guys have been like brothers for me and my ASMBS family for over 10 years. I want to thank you to Dr. John Scott and Dr. Richard Peterson. When we met and started working together over 10 years ago, I knew I had found my people. So one of the best things ASMBS has been, for me, has been the building of all kinds of friendships. And I would have loved to put up 50 slides of all the friends I have in this society. This really is my surgical home. Diversity and inclusion has also been an important focus for the ASMBS over the past several years, and I am very proud of the progress we have made towards a more diverse and inclusive society. I want to thank you to my mentors who took the time to give me guidance and to help me grow. I've had many more friends and mentors in the society, but I just couldn't add any more slides of pictures. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to highlight some of the amazing work of the past year. I will tell you that the committee work is the engine that powers the ASMBS. We have 23 surgeon committees and 9 integrated health committees with nearly 700 volunteers who produce a tremendous amount of resources for our members in education, advocacy, research, and professional improvement. Unfortunately, in the time I have today, I can't show you all the great work of these committees, but I do want to highlight some of the committee work. So the first committee I want to talk about today is our Clinical Issues Committee. This is our scientific writing committee, and it is chaired by Dr. Jonathan Carter and co-chaired by Wesley Vosberg with the EC liaison of Shonal Katari. One of the most impactful papers to come out of the CIC in many years has been the 2022 ASMBS IFSO Indications for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery. This was led by Dr. Katari and Dan Eisenberg as the lead author. So there were multiple updates to bring the indications of metabolic bariatric surgery up to match the current evidence. But one of the major updates was to include lower BMI thresholds, including those without comorbidities and those of Asian descent, and also including surgery for appropriately selected adolescents. We got a lot of media coverage for this. Certainly there was one week where I had 6 interviews in 1 week with different media outlets. And so this definitely generated a lot of interest. There has been some traction already in incorporating these new guidelines. Multiple different insurance carriers have already incorporated most of the updated indications in their coverage plans, and more are added each week to this list. So another very important publication was the literature review on anti-obesity medications. This is an important resource to support our members and our patients, especially at a time when AOM use has increased dramatically. The CIC has produced several papers that are valuable to our members, especially for those with general surgery coverage. This included the bariatric emergencies for the general surgeon and the literature review on internal hernias following gastric bypass. This is an excellent paper. We also had the literature review on the effect of different bypass limb lengths on outcomes. And we also had a paper on the impact of COVID-19 and obesity. So we did conduct the Obesity in America survey through NORC at the University of Chicago, which was funded by the ASMBS Foundation, the TRIO Foundation. This survey showed the impact of COVID made people more worried about obesity impacting their health. It prompted 28 million people to consider weight loss methods they had not considered before, including surgery. But unfortunately, most people still overestimated the results of diet and exercise, and they underestimated the success of metabolic bariatric surgery. But this survey did draw significant media attention again to the problem, again continuing to push the narrative and the discussion forward. We also had the OAGB, which was initially evaluated in 2018 and then again in 2022, when it was approved as an endorsed procedure by the ASMBS Executive Council. The ASMBS position statement on the OAGB, written by the CIC, will be published actually very soon after the meeting and will provide additional support for obtaining insurance coverage as well. We're already starting to see significant growth of this procedure. Endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty, or ESG, was also recently added to the ASMBS list of FDA-approved bariatric devices. It can now be performed in MBSA QIP accredited centers and tracked in the database to monitor outcome data. So one of our most active committees is the Access to Care Committee, led by Drs. Mickey Seeger, Renee Hilton, Darren Tischler, and Margaret Inneman, with significant support, of course, from the very experienced EC liaison, Joe Northrup. Much of the focus of this committee this year has been on the implementation of the 2022 ASMBS IFSO indications, especially for lower BMI indications. We met with multiple different insurance carriers and directors. There has been also improved coverage and access for both SADS and OAGB. They were also able to secure coverage for medical obesity treatment along with surgical treatment for the federal employee health benefits. So congratulations to Access to Care on another great year, and thank you for doing this important work. The Community Independent Practice Committee has put out multiple practice tips and tricks webinars this year, including a recent one on topics like how to get started with SADI in your practice. These are great resources. They're all on the website, and I encourage you guys to go back and watch these webinars. Another innovative program this year has been the Surgical Technique and Advanced Robotic Training Program called the START Program for fellows. This was put on by the Bariatric Surgery Training Committee. It was led by Drs. Matt Martin and Adrian Dan. There was significant interest in getting robotic training by fellows, and the first class of fellows to complete this program will receive their certificates this week. This program has been a great success and will be expanded to include more for next year. So I'd like to highlight the work of the Communications Committee with the chair Omar Ghanem and co-chair Christine Lovato. This committee has done a tremendous amount of work this year and has had an increased focus on facilitating improved communications internally with our members to increase the awareness of events and resources available to members. Their goals were to improve the efficiency and collaboration of the committees. They created a whiteboard so that we can better see what work is going on in the ASMBS to be more efficient and avoid duplication of work. They reintroduced the ASMBS is Me campaign with a focus on membership benefits, and they started a SWORD Spotlight to increase awareness of the SWORD Journal and articles through casual author interviews. So next, I would like to highlight the Public Education Committee. This committee was voted the ASMBS Committee of the Year. Congratulations to Drs. Brian Lehman, the chair, and Rakisha Wilson, the co-chair, with the EC liaison Farah Hussein. This committee has put tremendous effort into improving our patient learning center and patient-facing materials in preparation for the new website launch initiative. They've also added Spanish translation of patient materials. This is in addition to the significant work they've already done in creating a new patient education seminar with voiceover that you can rebrand for your own practice and use in your own practice. I'd also like to take just a minute to highlight the work of the Integrated Health section, which is a significant portion of our members and a very passionate group as well. The Integrated Health Committee has 9 committees, or Integrated Health section has 9 committees with over 100 volunteers. They have done many, many projects this year. I certainly couldn't go through them all. But one of the highlights was the creation of the FAS-MBS Integrated Health Program. This was to recognize the integrated health individuals who have made a substantial contribution through service and leadership in ASMBS. They have many other projects as well, including the Support Group Leadership Training Program, as well as many other training and support resources for our IH colleagues. I'd also like to just give a quick update on the Focused Practice Designation, or the FPD, through the American Board of Surgery. It was originally approved back in October of 2019, and the purpose of this exam is to demonstrate a unique body of knowledge and skill in the area of metabolic bariatric surgery. We had been working for over a decade to achieve this specialty designation, in addition and separate from general surgery, and that work started all the way back in 2012. We now have over 200 surgeons with this special designation. The next exam will be April 1st through the 6th in 2024, and I encourage you to seek this specialty designation. The FPD does provide value to surgeons. It gives us the long sought after recognition as specialists in this field of metabolic bariatric surgery, again, separate from general surgery. And this distinction can be helpful. Now, it can help you from anything from negotiations and call coverage or compensation, or even just to help balance the power that hospitals oftentimes have through the accreditation programs. So I'd like to take just a few minutes to highlight some of the high impact initiatives from the year. We have had a continued focus on collaboration with other organizations who have a focus and passion for obesity. We've been working for several years to gain support from the AMA for the treatment of obesity, including for metabolic bariatric surgery. Dr. John Scott and Dr. Samar Matar were able to get a major resolution passed this year at the AMA with the help of partner organizations, SAGES and ASGE, to secure support for continued advocating for medical and surgical treatment of obesity. It's to help break down barriers in access to care as well. It will allow local medical associations to receive resources to improve access and to avoid some of the discrimination and bias that is happening today. We also partnered with multiple organizations in the International Obesity Collaborative to be able to approach the issue of obesity treatment with a more unified voice as we can be more effective together. And this includes the OMA, the OAC, TOS, Stop Obesity Alliance, and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So a passion project for me has been an update to the ASMBS Compensation and Practice Survey from more than 10 years ago. This initiative was led by Dr. Wesley Vosberg to obtain data from the members to allow our members to be in a better position for negotiation in regards to compensation and resources for their practice. There was actually a great deal of interest in this survey, and I would tell you I still get tons of emails and phone calls about the first survey we did 10 years ago. So there were 657 responses from surgeon members. And this data is going to be available very shortly after the meeting on the web, on the members-only portion of the website. So I'm also very excited to announce the development of a new website for ASMBS. This initiative has been led by myself and Dr. John Scott, along with multiple people from across the organization as an advisory board. We had identified that the current website was outdated and difficult for many members to use effectively. During the discovery phase, we found that 87% of our traffic was new users and 40% identified as patients. So if 87% were new users, clearly our members were not utilizing our website because it was difficult to use. So the current website was also never designed to be patient-facing. The resources that were originally intended for our members to pull off from the website and then use for their practice. Yet patients were finding our website anyway. So we set out to redesign the website to have improved usability for the members, and for the first time, have a separate patient entry portal with patient-facing materials. So the website has been designed to be compatible with a mobile version first for the phone, as well as a desktop experience. It will have a different entry point for patients and other healthcare providers, and then for members. And this will allow the interaction with the website and the organization to be tailored to the individual audience. It will also allow us to direct patients to our members in their local area to access surgery through the Find the Provider tool. The website will have a new look and feel, but especially improved usability and search functions for our members. I can tell you that there are a wealth of resources for our members to use in their practice, and they need to be able to find it easily and access these resources. Otherwise, they're really not of benefit, and so many people have done a lot of work to make those resources happen. The launch of the new website is slated for early this fall. So I'm also very excited to announce the launch of the ASMBS International Certificate Exam, the ACE exam. So this task force is led by Dr. Rana Poulet as the chair and Dr. Matt Crow as the co-chair. There's been over many years actually a desire expressed by our international members to have a certificate from the ASMBS for demonstrated knowledge and focus in the specialty of metabolic bariatric surgery for qualified individuals. It will be a knowledge-based exam available to ASMBS international members and will be available for the first exam at the annual meeting next year in San Diego. There will be a lot more details coming out soon on how to prepare for and to take the exam. So I'd like to let you know about a few new projects on the horizon that I think will be also a big impact. Artificial intelligence is coming to surgery, and we need to be prepared for this future. We are developing a strategy for understanding and safely implementing digital surgery and AI to improve patient care. This effort is led by Dr. Matt Crow and will prepare us for leveraging this technology in the future. The research committee that has been led by Demetrios Stefanidis and Ben Clapp has laid the foundational groundwork to launch a multi-institutional research project using the MBS AQIP outcomes data. It will allow us to explore important practice questions to better understand the impact of many of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So many members have questions about where are our surgery volumes now that we're post-COVID. Dr. Arterburn said he always looks forward to seeing these numbers. So first I want to thank Dr. Ben Clapp. So this is a lot of work to get these MBS volumes for the US based on available data from all these sources available, MBS AQIP, the National Inpatient Sample, BOLD, state database, to come up with these total estimates. So the most recent numbers we have are for 2021 because there is a lag in receiving the numbers from the MBS AQIP. So as you can see, in 2021, we had recovered our surgical volumes back to slightly higher than the pre-COVID time in 2019. And we are now able to track SADS, OAGB, and ESG in the database as well. So as you can see, the sleeve gastrectomy is still the most common procedure, but there has been an increase in bypass numbers slightly in the past 2 years. We see revisions have stayed stable and are lower than they were back in 2019. And when you look at just primary procedures, the sleeve gastrectomy makes up 70% of the US surgical volume, and the room-wide gastric bypass was about 25% for the US. So the question we've been asking for a long time, Stephanie Sogg alluded to this earlier, but how can we move the needle beyond 1% utilization for those who are eligible for metabolic bariatric surgery? We have tried many things, and now we need a new approach. So it starts by understanding that obesity is a chronic disease, and this leads to a sequential model of care similar to oncology. This includes downstaging the disease for patients with severe disease, and this can be using neoadjuvant therapy. Then we have surgical treatment that can be then followed by adjuvant therapy to improve the surgical outcome. Some patients are going to need combined therapy or repeat therapy for recurrent or progressive disease. The theme of this year's meeting has been enhancing outcomes through combined therapies. This is centered around a multimodal therapy for the treatment of the chronic disease of obesity. But here's the important question we have to answer. Why don't more people come to have surgery? We know metabolic bariatric surgery is the most powerful tool we have for the treatment of obesity, with improved health and decreased mortality. But it is still severely underutilized due to fear, myths, misunderstanding, and bias. Many patients, the general public, and many healthcare providers believe this condition is the patient's fault. And if they would just try harder, they would not have this problem. There's tremendous weight bias, and they oftentimes feel like surgery is the easy way out because they have some type of failure of character. So when people believe that this is a voluntary or a behavioral problem, then surgery seems like an inappropriate extreme treatment for that kind of disease. But when you understand the disease of obesity is abnormal physiology that can be changed with metabolic surgery, then it starts to make sense. So we need to go directly to the public and win the hearts and the minds of the public. We need to normalize the conversation around obesity as a disease. Medications can be a bridge to help people understand obesity as a disease, and that if there's a medicine to treat this disease, there's also a surgery to treat this disease. We need to continue to reinforce in every conversation that metabolic bariatric surgery is safe. It is very safe. Amazingly, this is still not widely known or accepted outside of these walls. But I do believe that multimodal therapy is the future to optimal outcomes for this chronic disease over a patient's lifetime. Oops. So I will tell you that I do stand on the shoulders of giants, and no one gets here alone. I want to thank those who came before me and turned around to give me a hand up. And I want to thank those who walked beside me on this journey, doing the hard work of the society. But I also want to thank those who are coming up behind me and who are continually pushing us to continue to do better and to do more for our patients. I will tell you that ASMBS is powerful. This society produces a tremendous amount of work and resources for our members and patients. That power comes from the passion and dedication of the members. I can tell you that it has been the honor and privilege of my life to serve as the ASMBS president, and I do not regret saying yes. So, I really believe this is my journey, that the highest reward for a person's toil is not what they get for it, but what they become by it. And my question for you today is, will you be willing to say yes? Are you willing to be the next ones to carry the torch to a brighter future? So I invite you to say yes and see where the road takes you. So please come join us. This is your ASMBS. So EC, come up. You guys can come up. Yeah. Go ahead and come up, EC.
Thank you for that, Dr. LaMasters. First, I want to give you the ASMBS Mason Presidential Medal.
Thank you. It's kind not to give it to me earlier.
And also the ASMBS Presidential Plaque, which states, "Be it known, the Society hereby recognizes and honors Dr. Teresa LaMasters, 36th President of the ASMBS."
Now I'd like the current Executive Council of the ASMBS to come up and join me on this stage, because these are the folks doing the really heavy lift of the work of the society, and I want you to give them a round of applause as well.